Lastly, Mr. Christian Muyeba. Honorable Senators, on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I welcome the delegation to the Senate and wish them well for the remainder of their visit. Thank you. I will allow the majority and the minority leaders to take 2 minutes each to welcome the delegation before we proceed to the next order.
First. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I join you in welcoming the guests that have joined us this morning to follow our proceedings during this special sitting. I wish them well in their excursion here in the city, in Parliament, and what they are up to as they seek to understand the Kenyan parliamentary processes and whatever else that they find fit to study during their visit here in our republic. Most welcome to them. They come from such a beautiful city. So, Speaker, actually the last visit that I made to the US must have been last year with our Center for Parliamentary Studies and Training, was to Denver, Colorado. They have the ICSL, I forget the full initials actually, but it's the coordinating body for all the state legislatures in the US, and we were there for about a week. I don't know if there's any other person from the Senate that was with us on that particular trip, but we had a good time there in the very beautiful city of Denver. So welcome to Kenya, enjoy your stay, welcome to the Senate. This is supposed to be, and will soon be actually, the upper house of both houses of Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Most welcome to our guests.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would also want to join you in welcoming the guests who have come to visit us, to find out, to see how we normally conduct our business in the Senate, and maybe to enjoy their holidays here in Kenya, learn a bit, and I believe when they go back home, they'll be able to tell the rest on how we conduct our business here. I believe their visit here will be quite beneficial to see how we conduct and do our practice of ensuring that whatever we do here is in accordance with parliamentary procedures. Mr. Speaker, further, I want to extend my thanks to them for visiting Kenya, and I believe they have gotten an opportunity to visit the country, to see for themselves the magical places that we do have in this republic. And I thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
I will allow a minute to Senator Ledama, now that he was in school there.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for this opportunity to welcome the visiting delegation from Colorado. I'm an alumni of Fort Lewis in Durango, and I walked from Colorado to Arizona way back in 1998. So I know the Four Corners regions very well, and I'm happy that you've had an opportunity to come here. Yesterday, I was searching my former college, and I noted that I'm one of the notable alumni. So it was a great institution. Colorado is a great state. I hope that you will visit the Masai Mara when you're here to be able to see the good things that we have in Kenya. We have a wonderful country. We have a wonderful game reserves. And our economy is also blooming. We pride ourselves with being the largest economy in East and Central Africa. And we have got a good country. And it is our prayer that we'll keep it going. We only have a really small amount compared to the US and compared to Colorado, about $110 billion GDP. But we hope that we can be able to grow our economy better. So I hope that you can be able to, maybe Denver and Nairobi become sister cities. I know that used to be the case many years ago. So thank you for your time, and I hope you'll enjoy. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I do have two messages to deliver to you. I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 46.3 and 5, I received the following message from the Speaker of the National Assembly regarding passage of the National Assembly of the County Government's Allocation, Additional Allocations Number 2 Bill, Senate Bills Number 4 of 2022. The message, which is dated Thursday, 1st December 2022, was received on 2nd December 2022, while the Senate was on recess, and was transmitted to all senators on Monday, 5th December 2022. Pursuant to this said standing order, I now report the message. Pursuant to the provisions of Article 110(4) of the Constitution and Standing Order 41 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby convey the following message from the National Assembly. Whereas the Senate considered the County Government's Additional Allocations Number 2 Bill, Senate Bill Number 4 of 2022, on the 22nd November 2022, and thereafter referred the bill to the National Assembly for consideration pursuant to the provisions of Article 110(4) of the Constitution. Further, whereas the National Assembly considered the said bill on Wednesday, 30th November 2022, and passed it on Thursday, 1st December 2022, without amendments, and in the form passed by the Senate. Now, therefore, in accordance with the provisions of Article 110 of the Constitution and Standing Orders 41.1 and 144 of the National Assembly, Standing Orders, I hereby convey the said decision of the National Assembly to the Senate. Honorable Senators, I have transmitted the bill to His Excellency the President for assent. Thank you. Honorable Senators also wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 46.3 and 5, I received. Honorable Mugatana, kindly walk in and take a seat. Thank you. I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 46.3 and 5, I received the following message from the Speaker of the National Assembly regarding the passage by the National Assembly of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills Number 49 of 2022. The message, which is dated Friday, 2nd December 22, was received on Monday, 5th December 2022, while the Senate was on recess. Pursuant to the said standing order, I now report the message. Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Orders 41.1 and 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby convey the following message from the National Assembly. Whereas the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill Number 49 of 2022, was published via Kenya Gazette Supplement Number 174 of 2nd November 2022 as a bill proposing to amend the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Act 2011 to change the composition of the selection panel that oversees the filling of vacant positions in the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And whereas the National Assembly considered the bill in all stages and passed it on Thursday, December 1st, 2022 without amendments in the form attached hereto. Now, therefore, in accordance with the provisions of Article 110(4) of the Constitution and Standing Order 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby refer the said bill to the Senate for consideration. Honorable Senators, Standing Order 163 requires that a bill originating in the National Assembly be proceeded with by the Senate in the same manner as a bill introduced in the Senate, by way of first reading in accordance with Standing Order 144. As you may have observed, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills Number 49 of 2022, has been listed in today's order paper to be read a first time. Thank you. Next order.
Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, statements. Order number 8, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 49 of 2022, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Act and for connected purposes.
The Majority Leader. Next order.
Order number 9, the County Vocational Education and Training Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2022.
Honorable Senator Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, sir, ordinarily I would be begging to move, but I wish to beg to defer this bill. It has been in consultation with the leader of the majority and the minority side, and also in consultation with some members of the Education Committee. The County Vocational Training and Education Bill is currently being considered by the Education Committee, and I see the chair is present. In fact, I have information that today they were supposed to consider the bill, but the meeting was postponed because of the special sitting. Mr. Speaker, Standing Order 148 requires committees to report on bills that have been committed to them. And even though this bill is extremely important, and I wish to thank the leader of majority for scheduling this bill for this special sitting, I think it will do more good to the nation if we allowed the expert input of the Education Committee and the stakeholders that they've been consulting so that we can enrich the bill, and when it comes back to the House, we can pass it in a manner that will not lead to a back and forth between the two houses. So, Mr. Speaker, I beg your indulgence. I know that this special sitting is important. It consumes resources. But if we are going to process bills, we'd rather do them in the right way to avoid litigation, to avoid referrals from the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I believe that the chair of the Education Committee and the team that he leads will be able to advise this House accordingly so that when we debate the bill, the House will be well informed. Mr. Speaker, I beg to request.
Yes, Majority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have no opposition to what Senator Moses Kajwang has proposed. Indeed, he has spoken to me about the nature of the deferral that he's proposing to the House, and it's for good reason, and I agree with him. If possible, and not actually if, it always should be the case that when you are transacting business, to have the input of the committee. Even after pre-publication scrutiny, Mr. Speaker, before the committee stage, and you remember the discussion, the debate that we had here when we passed the additional allocation of revenue bill last week here, Mr. Speaker, before we broke for recess, many members felt that they needed to know what were the considered issues that arose during consideration of the bill by the committee. And if for that reason Senator Moses Kajwang feels that the House will benefit better from the more thorough perusal of this bill by the Committee on Education, then I agree to it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, further to that, I'd wish to state that we have various bills that are pending in various committees during the pre-publication scrutiny stage. I wish to make a request, Mr. Speaker, that the chairpersons or even members of a committee, it's increasingly looking bad when you compare our order paper and that of the National Assembly, that ours continues to be empty. On most occasions when we meet, it's either for motions, they're equally important, but you know very well that the more important business for Parliament is legislation for substantive bills actually that come before this House. Virtually almost every committee has a member that has requested that their bill be considered, and committees are taking slightly longer. In fact, Mr. Speaker, yesterday when you were, or last week rather, when you were considering the business to be brought before the House today, to be considered, many of the bills were found to be in the various committees, where the committee is yet to give the final note of approval, whether the bill can be published or not. I want to request the chairpersons that if, before you break for Christmas, you can complete on the business of any bills that are before you for consideration, so that we give authority for publishing, such that when we begin, and chances are we shall be consulting with my counterpart, the leader of the minority, Mr. Speaker, I don't think it's tenable for us to wait until Valentine's Day next year for us to reconvene again. Yet there's a lot of business that is pending before the House. The design and the context of actually today's sitting was to have as many bills as possible be read the first time so that the committees can begin. Then probably towards the later in the month of January, we meet here and process most of those bills, because that's ideally what we should be doing. Therefore, I want to request the committee chairpersons, Mr. Speaker, that conclude on that business, have it ready, let it be published, so that in the first or the second week of January, we're likely to reconvene here and have maybe 10, 15 bills that are committed to our various committees, so that in the month of January, actually, as we do our recess, by 15th of January, when committees reconvene back, they can be processing those bills into the second stage. Therefore, as my further request, and I hope that we can have the cooperation of both members and chairpersons of committee. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I thank you, and I appreciate Senator Moses Kajwang for what he has proposed to the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't think I'll be afoul of the law if I take this opportunity, because chances are we may not have a chance to meet again with colleagues to wish them a Merry Christmas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ledama.
Mr. Speaker, I want to echo the words of the Majority Leader. During the last session, we had a lot of bills that lapsed. And I know the Secretariat in your office were trying to seek concurrence with the lower house. It will be important for us to get an update, and maybe I should have waited to deal with this matter in the House business. But I think it is in the interest of the country, and also for this House, members of this House, to note that there are so many bills that lapse. I have 2 bills that lapsed in the National Assembly in the last Parliament, which I had requested for them to be republished so that we can be able to have business. So, Mr. Speaker, maybe if you could advise the House on the status of those bills. I know the legal department were trying to fast track, but this requires you to speak to your brother in the lower house for concurrence, because these are bills that had already passed this House. In fact, when we reintroduce those bills again here, and I remember even my bill on county oversight and accountability, I did it the second time because of the case, the court case, and the decision by the Court of Appeal. So to be able to bring business in this House, and also as a whip, it will be important for us to whip people to come when we have actually a lot of work that can be able to enrich the debate and also can be able to support our counties. So, Mr. Speaker, if you can update us on how far we've gone with that, would really appreciate it. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senator Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity, and I arise to agree with the Honorable Senator Kajwang and my majority leader that we defer this bill on vocational education and training. Mr. Speaker, we have held several sittings with the committee. I chair the Committee of Education. And Mr. Speaker, there are very many clauses in that bill, and there are very many stakeholders that have given their propositions and suggestions, which we are considering. And Mr. Speaker, we agreed that because it's very voluminous, that we are going to have maybe a day or two, a kind of a retreat, and we will conclude on this bill. And Mr. Speaker, through you, I think I want to assure the majority leader in the House that this bill will be dispensed with. It's only that we do not want to do a shoddy job. So, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to give that assurance as Chair Education Committee, even as I agree with the suggestion that we defer the bill as given by the Honorable Senator Kajwang. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Socha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also join my colleagues to support the fact that I think it's important to defer this bill. But Mr. Speaker, allow me to raise some two concerns. The first concern is that I believe, Mr. Speaker, before a matter is put on the order paper, there must be some consultations, particularly involving the owner of the bill and the majority leader and minority leader. It is surprising that looks like there was no adequate consultation before this matter was put on the order paper, and given that it was a special session, I think it was important for even the committee to inform the majority leader and minority leader about the status of their work. So I think, Mr. Speaker, that is a matter that really we need, as a Senate, we need to look into, so that we do not call special sessions when we are not very sure about the content of what we are going to discuss. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I think from my experience in this House, a bill that is supposed to be discussed at the second reading must, the report from the committee must be ready, so that members will have the benefit of reading the report, understanding what the stakeholders said during public participation, and therefore they will be able to contribute meaningful to the debate. But if we have a matter that is coming on the second reading, especially a bill, and the report is not ready, Mr. Speaker, we are setting a wrong precedent, and I think the report, before a matter is put on the order paper, the report from the committee must be ready. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I also wish to wish members Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you. This matter is so deferred to await the report by the committee. As for the matter raised by Senator Olekina, it shall be discussed at the SBC, and maybe the majority will be able to put the House into the know. Next order, Clerk. What is your point of order, Senator Kajwang?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Osotsi has raised a matter that probably needs some inspection. The matter of consultation before convening a special sitting. And Mr. Speaker, Standing Order number 33 is quite clear on the procedure and who can call a special sitting. But Parliament is not only guided by the standing orders, but there is also tradition and precedence. We have set a precedent in this House that when the leader of majority or leader of minority wishes to convene a special sitting, there ought to be some consultation. Not necessarily concurrence, but consultation between the two sides. Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage that let us not kill this spirit. I don't argue that it is mandatory. I argue that it is a good precedent and a good tradition. And I wish the leader of majority and minority were here so that when issues are lined up for discussion in a special sitting, there is no disagreement on the agenda. There is no disagreement on the motive. Mr. Speaker, ideally, if there was consultation, we probably would have dealt with a few other businesses that have been in the order paper in the form of motions, or we probably would have found certain other pieces of legislation that were ripe for consideration. And so, Mr. Speaker, I don't fault the majority leader for calling this special sitting in the manner in which he called it. But I would like that you pronounce yourself from the chair that we should never kill that spirit of bipartisanship that this Senate is known for. Because today the majority leader would want a special sitting, tomorrow the minority leader would want a special sitting. We wouldn't want to balkanize the House. This is a house of sober second reflection. This is the upper house. And I know that there's a reason why the visitors have chosen to come to the Senate, because this is a house where they know they are safe. They will come out with some words of wisdom. Mr. Speaker, please prevail upon the leader of majority and minority to consult at all times on the agenda to be brought before this House.
Thank you, Honorable Senator Kajwang. Indeed, this House is guided and operates on the standing orders and the President's state. And as you rightly said, a President has been said for quite some time now that whenever a special sitting is being requested, either by the majority or the minority, there must be some kind of consultation, not necessarily concurrency. We do not intend to deviate from that practice. Senator Cheptumo.
Mr. Speaker, I think you've already given directions. I was just worried that the impression created by the senator is like there was no consultation at all, and it's like there's a problem. But I think, Mr. Speaker, having given the direction, I want to rest my point there. But I think it is important to do consultations. But I think it is wrong to give the impression that this sitting was convened in a manner that there was no consultations. In any event, Mr. Speaker, in fact, it is Honorable Kachwang himself who actually sought the deferment of his bill for the reason that the Committee on Education had not given the report to the House. So I'm only concerned that there seemed to be an impression that there was no consultation. But I agree with you that in future that should be done if it was not done in this particular moment.
Honorable Senators, there being no other business on the order paper, the Senate stands adjourned until Tuesday, 14th February 2023 at 2:30 p.m.